What would make you stay in a place where the ground could explode beneath your feet? Or a town so hot that people moved underground just to survive? Or a city so high that your body slowly breaks down with every breath? Most people would run. But across the world, there are communities that looked at the most dangerous, extreme, and isolated places on Earth and said, "This is home." These are 7 places where nobody should live. But people do. And they refuse to leave. 350 kilometers south of Tokyo, a volcanic island rises from the Pacific Ocean. This is Aogashima, and about 170 people live here. What makes Aogashima extraordinary is its shape. It is a volcano inside a volcano, a smaller cone growing within the crater of a larger one, and the village sits between the two. There is no hospital, no airport. The only way to reach Aogashima is by helicopter, and it only flies when the weather allows, which is roughly half the time. A ferry runs from a neighboring island, but rough seas cancel the trip more often than not. In 1785, the volcano erupted violently, forcing every single resident to evacuate. The island was abandoned for 50 years. Then, in 1835, a small group returned and rebuilt from nothing. Their descendants still live there today. They grow sweet potatoes in volcanic soil, produce salt from geothermal steam, and distill their own shochu liquor. Life is quiet, simple, and surrounded by the constant reminder that the volcano beneath them is only sleeping. In the Australian outback, summer temperatures regularly exceed 50 degrees Celsius. The sun is relentless. The landscape is flat, dry, and empty for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. So the people of Coober Pedy did something remarkable. They moved underground. About 1,600 people live in this small town in South Australia, and more than half of them live in homes carved directly into the rock. They call them dugouts. These underground houses stay a comfortable 23 to 25 degrees year-round, without any air conditioning. Coober Pedy was founded in 1915 when a teenage boy discovered opals while his father searched for water. The town became the opal capital of the world, and miners realized that the tunnels they dug made perfect homes. Today, Coober Pedy has underground churches, an underground bookshop, and an underground hotel. From the surface, the town looks almost abandoned, just mounds of earth and scattered mining equipment. But beneath the ground, an entire community thrives. The name Coober Pedy comes from the Aboriginal term Kupa Piti, which roughly translates to white man's hole in the ground. The locals will tell you it was meant as an insult, but they took it as a compliment. At 5,100 meters above sea level, La Rinconada in Peru is the highest permanent settlement on Earth. It sits at the base of a glacier in the Andes, higher than any European mountain peak, higher than most aircraft fly during turbulence. About 50,000 people live here, and the conditions are brutal. At this altitude, the air contains roughly half the oxygen found at sea level. Headaches, nausea, and altitude sickness are part of daily life. Temperatures regularly drop below -20 degrees Celsius. There is no running water, no sewage system, and no garbage collection. So why does anyone live here? Gold. La Rinconada sits on one of the richest gold deposits in the Andes. Miners work under a system called cachorreo. They work for 30 days without pay, and on the 31st day, they are allowed to take as much ore as they can carry out of the mine. Whatever gold they find in that ore is theirs. Some find nothing. Some find enough to feed their families for months. It is a gamble, played at the edge of human endurance, every single month. In the Hadramaut Valley of Yemen stands a city that looks like a desert Manhattan, towers of brown and beige rising sharply from the valley floor. This is Shibam, and its towers are made entirely of sun-dried mud bricks. Some of these buildings are over 500 years old and rise 11 stories high. They are among the oldest skyscrapers on Earth. The residents of Shibam built upward for one reason: protection. The valley was a target for raiding tribes, and building tall meant families could retreat to upper floors and pull up ladders behind them. Animals stayed on the ground floor. Food stores went in the middle. Families lived at the top. But mud is fragile. Every year, after the rainy season, residents must replaster the exterior walls by hand, a community effort that has been repeated for generations. If they stop, the buildings dissolve. Despite wars, floods, and the passage of centuries, the towers of Shibam still stand. It is one of the most extraordinary examples of human stubbornness, an entire city maintained by hand year after year because the people refuse to let it fall. In a remote fjord in northwestern Iceland, a rusted herring factory stands at the edge of the sea. Beside it, a single guest house, a waterfall, and almost nothing else. This is Djúpavík. In the 1930s and 1940s, Djúpavík was a thriving herring processing town. Workers flooded in during the herring boom, and the factory ran day and night. Then the herring disappeared. The workers left. The town collapsed. By the 1980s, Djúpavík was completely abandoned. Buildings rotted. The factory fell silent. Then, one couple, Eva and Asbjørn, bought the factory and the surrounding buildings. They restored the guest house, opened it to travelers, and became the town's only permanent residence. Today, a handful of people live in Djúpavík during summer. The factory has become an art gallery and concert venue, hosting musicians who travel hours through empty landscapes just to perform in one of the most isolated venues in Europe. Djúpavík is proof that it only takes one or two stubborn people to bring a place back from the dead. In southern Tunisia, the Saharan heat can be unbearable. Temperatures climb above 50 degrees on the surface. So, centuries ago, the Berber people dug down. In Matmata, homes are built by digging a large circular pit into the soft sandstone, sometimes 10 meters deep. Rooms are then carved into the walls of the pit, radiating outward like spokes of a wheel. The central pit becomes an open-air courtyard. These troglodyte dwellings stay cool in summer and warm in winter, naturally insulated by the earth itself. Some families have lived in the same underground homes for generations. In 1976, George Lucas visited Matmata while scouting locations for Star Wars. The Hotel City Driss, an actual underground dwelling, became Luke Skywalker's home on the planet Tatooine. The name Tatooine itself comes from a nearby Tunisian town called Tatooine. Today, some residents have moved to above-ground housing built by the government, but many choose to stay underground, because after centuries, the old way still works better than the new one. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, 2,000 kilometers from the nearest continent, sits a coral atoll so small you can walk across it in 20 minutes. This is Palmerston Island. Its entire population, roughly 35 people, are descendants of one man, William Marsters, an Englishman who settled on the uninhabited island in 1863 with his 3 Polynesian wives. Over 160 years later, every single person on Palmerston is related. They share the same last name. They govern themselves. They fish, collect coconuts, and receive supply ships roughly once every 3 months. There is no airport, no store, and no doctor. When the supply ship arrives, it is the most important day on the island. Palmerston is not dangerous in the way a volcano or a desert is, but its isolation is absolute. The people who live here have chosen a life that most of us cannot imagine, and they would not trade it for anything. 7 places, 7 communities, 7 different reasons to stay. What connects them is not the danger or the hardship. It is something quieter than that. It is the human refusal to give up on a place, even when the rest of the world has moved on. The people of Aogashima rebuilt after a volcano erased their home. The miners of Rinconada gamble their health for a handful of gold. A single couple in Iceland brought a dead town back to life. We like to think we choose where we live, but sometimes a place chooses us, and the most extraordinary people are the ones who stay.